What is your belief about the kind of person we're talking about and the kind of potential threat she may present to this country if she did come back?
She's a manipulator.
She drives me nuts because for the last year and a half I spent time with her until, well, I'm sure we get to the reason why I don't speak to her anymore.
And literally along the desk on the 37th parallel is a set of microphones.
The guns that they've been supplied with by the West were in the market stalls.
Andrew, good to see you, mate.
Pleased to meet you, Chris. Read a lot about you.
Well, only the bad stuff, I hope.
That's what I concentrate on.
And let's just say a big thank you and big love to Nick Smith, who put us in contact. Nick's been helping us out on the podcast. He's an absolute diamond of a guy. He seems to be hooking all the podcasters up with some great guests, and hence today. So thank you, Nick.
Let's hope your listeners agree with you after this podcast.
I'm sure they will.
Cool.
Let's get it. So, Andrew, you're a filmmaker, journalist, adventurer. I guess we can say alternative adventurer. You spent a lot of time with Shamima Begum, who's been in and out of the media, isn't she, for the last, 5 years now?
She drives me nuts because for the last year and a half, I spent time with her until, well, I'm sure we get to the reason why I don't speak to her anymore, but for a year and a half, she's been a big part of my life. She's caused me 5 trips to Syria because of her. So, yeah, no, she's been part of my life.
First thing I want to ask you, so you're on the Piers Morgan show.
Oh, Jesus.
Is he as big a prick as we all think he is?
Yeah, he is. He's a rude twat. I got asked to go on the show. Well, first of all, the production team got in contact with me to see if I could get a live interview with him and Shamima, which is completely nuts. He wanted me to go there, set up some live broadcast so he could stay in his studio. He didn't even have the bollocks to go over there and meet her. But she'd already told me, and she thinks he's a knob, and she's a knob. She said it can have a message to Piers, tell him to fuck off. That was what Shamima's message, and I did relay that. But the reason I don't think much of him, I was invited onto the show. I went on, I travelled up, sat in a green room for an hour, got 3 or 4 minutes to talk about a subject. And then obviously you introduce, you go to break, and there he is sitting at his big desk, the big I am. And then he shakes your hand, offers your hand, doesn't really want to give you it, doesn't want to know nothing about you. Then because you're in adverts, you've gone to break. And then he plays on his mobile phone. So you're sitting there looking like a lemon for 3 minutes while he's checking out his, whatever he's checking out, his tweets or whatever. Then you go to the interview, and afterwards you treat it like a piece of shit. But uncensored, if you ask me on again, Piers, go fuck yourself.
Yes, and friends at home, I Andrew, if it's any whatever that word is, comfort. I've been treated the same in let's call it mainstream media. But no, I do. Friends at home, I should apologise. I don't use words like prick lightly. It's just this is a man that when me and my veterans were fighting for the children's future, fighting against these huge trillion-dollar pharmaceutical companies, all backed by BlackRock and Vanguard, we told people what would happen. Not going to say any buzzwords here, folks, but there was a certain procedure that everyone was forced to take. Not everyone, but the pressure was on, and one of the leading protagonists in trying to shame people into screwing with themselves and their bloody children, basically, was Piers Morgan.
I took quite firm views throughout it, like a lot of people, I guess. One of which was when it was believed, when the vaccines first came along, that they would stop transmission. It seemed to me if you refuse to be vaccinated, you shouldn't be entitled to the same rights to go to nightclubs and stuff as those who'd taken the vaccine and were therefore not able to transmit it. However, When it was established that vaccines actually didn't stop transmission, they just stopped a lot of people getting very sick and dying. The argument to then suppress any liberties or freedoms of the unvaccinated, to me, it went away.
And now that he's realized that he was on the wrong side of history, and we're talking a serious wrong side of history, you know, this is on a level with Nuremberg. He's now kind of conveniently tried to hop on the other side of the fence, and he's getting the Jordan Petersons of this world on his show, and it's not as though he doesn't have a history of doing this, of doing really, really evil acts and then trying to distance himself from them. And I think people are waking up now, Andrew. You know, I
certainly have. He was on my tick list, and I don't know why. You know, I just wanted to do Piers Morgan, and now I go, do you know what? I don't really wouldn't want to be associated with him. He was calling people COVID-idiots. Well, it works both ways, doesn't it? COVID-idiot can be both ways. And by the way, I didn't follow any of the rules anyway. None of them.
No,
I didn't
me
stay in
neither.
Christmas. I had as many people as I wanted round. My sister died during COVID, not because of COVID, because of cancer. And if I'd followed their stupid rules, I wouldn't have seen her. So I don't give a shit about any of it. I didn't follow it, didn't listen to it. I did what I wanted. Because I'm a free spirit, and I ain't going to listen to that shit. And no, I haven't got no time for Piers anymore. I didn't really have before. I wanted to give him peace of my mind, but I got 3 minutes or 5 minutes at the most. Waste of bleeding time.
Good shout, mate. So nice to have someone on the podcast that sees it for what it, you know, folks, we're all born perfect. We don't need $1 trillion companies telling us how to live our lives. And maybe you do, but in that case, I seriously encourage.
Were we not sold a cure? Were we not sold a cure and it wasn't a cure?
Well, we were sold some bullshit, mate, you know, and we were sold a lot of it. And there were, I call them gutless cowards. If you don't stand up for the children, who are you? What are you? You know?
Exactly. Well, the media protect their careers, don't they? That's what they do. You know, it's a career protection thing. They don't want to be saying something in media because they don't want to be seen as something. It's like this political correctness we have now. And Piers says uncensored. You're certainly not uncensored when you go on the show.
No, of course not. They're, you know, mainstream media is the mouthpiece for what I call the psychopaths, you know.
Well, media got me kicked out of Syria. So that'll be another story that you'll get onto.
Yeah, so let's just take it from the beginning then, Andrew. How did you get into this adventurous lifestyle? What?
I'm a nosy fucker. Sorry about swearing. I don't know if you can. Some you can't.
That's fine. Don't worry.
But I think it all stems back from when I was a young kid. My brother died of leukemia at the age of 10. He was only a year younger than me. So I saw a guy, and it always played on my mind. I tried, even when I was growing up, I tried to achieve more for him. I didn't do it. It was subconsciously I didn't do it. It just I seemed to be doing it. And he didn't have a chance to come to this earth and produce anything. And that was always in the back of my mind. I wanted to be something, but coming from a council estate in Aldershot, you don't really have many opportunities. You have to create your own. And my opportunity opened when I went on holiday to Uganda. I wasn't supposed to go to Uganda. I wanted to go to Afghanistan, but they had an earthquake we got in the way. So went to Uganda on a guerrilla thing. It was a bit of a different holiday to most people. I thought, I'll give it a go. And then I realised I don't really fucking like gorillas, to be honest. They're not big for me. I'm not an animal person. They're lovely. They're beautiful spending time with them. And there's lovely gorillas, but it didn't do nothing for me. They're out in the wild and it wasn't my stuff. I wanted something a bit more than that. And it was the Zaire was close, which is now the Congo Republic. And they're at war. There was a civil war. And I thought it might be good just a little climb up the mountains and have a little look in there. Because it kind of filled me. I didn't know what to expect and what to see. And as we climbed over this rocky mountain path and got into the Republic, Jesus Christ, the country was completely different. We went for a banana plantation, got to our first village, and turned around and thought, well, that's it. We've been there. We've been to Zaire. And as we were walking back, this guy came out with a big knife because he thought we were stealing his bananas. And he did. And he started to walk faster behind and chase us. And then he started to run. And we ran with our guide. And the guy gave up chase. And we spoke to the guy. I said, what would he do? He said, he'd kill you. He thinks you're nicking his banana. So you would have been dead. But I think that adrenaline boost it gave me, I kind of looked for that again. And I loved the adventure of it all. So from that moment onward, my life had changed because I found something that I could do and I enjoy. And after that, every adventure, every year I go back now. And first of all, it was a holiday. Now media have taken over.
Couldn't you have just like chucked a banana skin down and to trip him up?
Do you know what I mean?
Yum, yum.
Listen, I didn't think about that. His eyes were yellow and his knife was long. So I thought, I'm off, mate. I'm done. But then coming back and in the camp, when everybody else were crying because they saw some gorillas, these mountain gorillas, they're all right. They're hairy and they're nice and they're in the habitat. And I was more excited about being chased. These people were more excited about seeing gorillas. And then I found my holidays then moved on to Chernobyl and Afghanistan, Pakistan and Mogadishu. And there's always a relation to my trips of what I want to see. But the fear and enjoying that little bit, I mean, you was in the military, so you'll know all about this. There is an adrenaline boost by it being at risk and an enjoyable, and it becomes addictive, I think.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing. I've said this a few times on the podcast, is that they say when you're in combat or conflict, you're supposed to be scared. And I never was. I loved every minute of it. Even when the rounds were coming down and people were getting hit, not that I wish them any harm, but that's like what you joined up for,
That's what I want to ask you about actually being military. I have asked my mates that have provided me security. I've only had security in the last 3 or 4 years because obviously TV people, they're precious. They don't want to get killed or they don't want to be in any trouble. So you have to have security. But when I first was on front line, I come under attack by ISIS, and it was quite a nasty little episode. There was a suicide attack and blew himself up in a JCB trying to break the front line. And as the bullets were firing, I started laughing, and I don't know why. I'm not a psychopath. I'm a normal, nice guy. I'm a father, quite a soft-natured guy. And I still can't, I don't know if that was adrenaline. Did you ever get that, I don't know, it was excitement, buzz? I mean, I could have been killed, but I don't know. Why was I laughing inside? And I'm trying to work that out. Was it something normal?
I don't know. I guess we can be quite detached from things until we get hit. Would be my I mean, you are fine, aren't you, until you get hit. And when you get hit, then you're probably crying for your mum, and it's a shitty story from then onwards. But
I wasn't scared. I hadn't been trained like you. I mean, you're a professional man, but I hadn't been trained. But I wasn't at all frightened. I think I was more fearful going up to the front line. But once you were there, there was no fear. The fear had gone away, and the excitement that kicked in, and that worried me, and it still worries me to today.
I think we're quite limited in that lifestyle. Have you seen an incredible documentary? I think it's called something like Which Way to the Front Line. Do you know the one I mean?
No. I could tell you Which Way to the Front Line could have been in the story for this front line we got.
Yeah, there's a documentary. It's called Which Way to the Front Line or something like that. And it was about this journalist, and he'd done some time in Africa, and he'd done. It's called Tim Hetherington for folks that want to check it out. And he'd done all these stuff, getting shot at, having to talk his way out of being in like potentially a hostage situation with some not very well balanced people. And then finally he bought it, for want of a better word. The video was done by Sebastian Junger, who was the guy that wrote
I know Sebastian Junger is.
He wrote the book Perfect Storm, didn't he, about the fishing disaster, the fishing boat disaster.
Because I guess we don't ever think it's going to happen to us. The way you said about that, Which Way to the Front Line, it was kind of how it happened to me in Kirkuk. We I mean, you're military, everything's organised. We were in a vehicle. I had no body armour on, no protection, pair of shorts on, and probably some slides or some flip flops. I only went out because I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience the front line, but nothing as amazing as we did, because you don't know what you're doing. We got lost in Kirkuk, so we were asking directions to a front line on a semi-held ISIS territory, which is as thick as what you can ever get. Our fixer was trying to sort it out. We come across a Turkmen TV, and they said, well, there was an action last night, so come and follow us. So we were asking where front line was. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Where is the front line was something happened to us. And I don't know how front lines work, but this one in particular was, I knew we were in a bit of a dodgy situation, because you can hear mortar fire, can't you? You can hear a lot of bangs, and as we go, it works in stages. I didn't realise that you have like a 1.5 mile drive on this road to actually get different stages of front line. Is that normal? You'd get kind of behind, you get tanks, and then behind that you get a medical station, and behind that, well, this is particularly this. I think they were, I can't remember, the Abbas militia were fighting. So they got these areas, and then when I got to the front line, I thought, fuck me, I've spent all this time trying to find a front line. Now it's gone quiet. I could hear all the noises going up to it. I thought, geez, and then for about an hour or so, there's no fucking noise. I thought, I've missed it again. And it's ridiculous going looking for it, because I've got family. And then the realization of what life and how precious life is and how short life can be. Because I sat, and this commander of the good guys stood up, and there was like a football, like a leather football on the floor, what I thought something kicked in. It was somebody's stomach. You know, all of a sudden you've gone, I've never expected to see this. And he kicked it into the hedge, a piece of human being. And I kind of realized that, shit, is this where I want to be? And as the story goes, the most memorable thing I had of the front line until it kicked off was this sniper. And it sticks with me, Chris, and it will do for the rest of my life. And you might have heard stories like this. I was with this Iraqi guy from the militia, and they have this, is it 50 caliber sniper thing?
50 cal, that's it.
Yeah, it was a homemade jobby with a sight on it, and he was in this kind of pit, and they have like this breeze block makeup. I don't know what it is, dirt and then breeze block. Might be just, I don't know, something to do with bullets, taking them in. You know more about it. But he was looking through his sniper rifle, and I said, "Can I have a look?" And he said, he pointed at this white house on the corner. And I said, is that prominent to you? Do you know the house? He said, yeah, this village is where I lived. We got kicked out, and we set up a front line from where we are. Eventually want to go back in our village. And I looked through, and I said, but what's that house? I mean, you're looking at? He said, that's my house. And that shocked me. And I said, so the people you see coming out of that house, is that ISIS? Or is that your family? He said, it's a mixture of both. He said, they could be with my family. And so he'd spent 2 years or a year and a half looking at his house being occupied. How would that feel to anybody? And that story brought a lump to my throat. It still does now. So all the stories I tell around the world of people I've met, that one sticks to me. How torturous could that be? And there was and how front lines, as you know, they're not nice places. Viewing, there was a JCB with his bucket up, and inside that bucket was the remains of a human being that had blown himself up a few hours before we got there. And I think when we moan about Iraqis, or we choose our friends, these people were fighting to hold ISIS back. So they stick to me. And we've kind of, I don't want to move on to political, we kind of just forgot about them. They're not important to us anymore. You'd have fought alongside them, I'd imagine. Were you in Iraq?
Well, Andrew, can I just say, for a start, like if it was up to me, and my mates and the people that I associate with, mostly over the internet now, we wouldn't have these wars. They're so utterly ridiculous. And when you hear people go, yeah, we pulled out, it's like, no, we didn't pull out. We wouldn't have even been there. It's the psychopathic controllers that they create the. I know I'm preaching to the choir, mate. You know, they create these situations, and then everyone like buys into it because they've seen it on the mainstream media. It's like, yeah, we're there in Ukraine, or it's like, well, you're not there for a start. Secondly, if you were there and you sat down with a Ukrainian and a Russian and an American and a Brit, or you'd all be like, right, who's getting the next round? You know, let's not, you know, we ain't going to start shooting each other. Are we?
I think you could say that definitely about Ukraine now. I'm not too sure about those ISIS boys and maybe Shabab. I don't think they'll sit down and have anything with you. Some of them other guys.
Yeah, sorry. Let me just a little add in here, mate. Is let's remember that these groups are all created by an outside, and they're
correct.
You know, and
that's factual.
They're all controlled. A lot of the stuff in the Middle East comes off like you know. I mean, it's like Odo. Don't want to say the guy's name, but Osama. You know, he was a CIA asset. And he suited their purpose for this many years, and then bang, when the when they needed a bad guy, the poor guy walked straight into the trap. And ISIS,
Gaddafi,
Gaddafi, ISIS driving around in brand new Toyotas. Who sold them those Toyotas? Yeah, you know, this is what the Joe Bloggs in the street doesn't get.
Well, we know from what was happening to the Iraqi forces when I was over there, and I've travelled there quite a few times. They were getting that they had no pay; they weren't being paid. The Iraqi army, so they were selling their guns in the market that were being bought by ISIS. So the guns that they're being supplied with by the West were in the market stalls to pay for food for their family because they didn't have any. I don't think they've been paid for 6-7 months. So there's so much going on. They should start
a podcast.
Say.
They should start a podcast, then they'll get paid even less.
I don't know how much podcast paid, but so that's kind of where my interest comes. Like we're talking about now, is finding out like an average boy from a council estate is not supposed to know nothing, because we're directed in life to pay our taxes, go on holiday once a year, and die. So for me, that was never going to be enough. So I wanted to know more. I mean, the only way to know things is to actually go and find out yourself. You can watch a documentary on TV. You've probably filmed like I have. So you've got a camera behind you, everything goes back in editing suite. And when you see the final item, it's not really what you imagine. So the good thing about coming on things like this, you can actually say what happens. And visually, if you go yourself, you know the truth. It's like Shamima. When I'd interviewed her and all the shit that's come out after that, and people saying to me, I had death threats, and then I had no death threats. I love a death threat, though. They're phenomenal. You think you made it, don't you, a death threat? But I mean, like these celebrities go, I've been a death threat, I've been pestered. I go, do you really take it serious? When a man with an avatar, Superman, who's got followers too, is going to really come to your house and kill you? Really? You're going to go on and say, I've had some serious death threats, going to call the police? No, I'd like a dust up with them. I think one guy said to me, if you come to Luton, you're dead. I said, if I go to Luton, I want to be dead. So, you know, no offense to anybody in Luton, I'm sure it's beautiful. But that kind of, but the whole part of this travel and the thing we do, and you've done the same with your podcast and your life and see what you do to them, you can actually find out the truth. If you really want it, the truth's out there. You just got to get off your arse and find it. But Shamima, I conned her. Really, I didn't intend to, but I did. I baited her. So I went from meeting her, thinking she was a victim, and coming out hating her. So I went right the way round. And Shamima was a mistake. I mean, I've got a documentary come out soon following me around a few countries and bits and pieces. And do you want to hear this? I mean, I'll tell you
Andrew, is it worth, for our friends at home who might not be familiar with who Shamima is, just to give a quick synopsis on how she ended up in that situation?
Shamima, about probably 6-7 years ago now, was famously seen on the front of a newspaper with two of her mates. They left the UK to join ISIS. So they went and ended up in Raqqa and become married. All three of them become married. Two of them are now dead. They both got blown up in Baghouz. And then Shamima she got picked up as she was trying to escape. And I think she tried to blend in with refugees. So now Shamima, the British girl from Bethnal Green, is now in a prison called Al Roj in Kurdish Tel, Syria. Most people know about her because she's been all over the place just recently, and they're taking her citizenship away. There's a lot of people now turning to think that she should come back, her citizenship should be given back, and we've given her a misjustice. So that's who Shamima Begum is, and I think most people do know who she is.
With predictability, I have to say, Shamima, the overwhelming response we're getting from the viewers to this programme is that you shouldn't even be on camera. They think that you have completely disqualified yourself from British life, that you don't count, and a typical message is you should leave her where she is and let her rot.
Well, I was told by journalist friends going back about 2 years ago that she's not speaking to anybody at the moment. So part of my filming mission, like I said to you last week, just explained, I'm nosy. I want to know really what's going on. I don't believe the papers. She had this conspiracy theory about these babies, whether they're real or not, and kind of wanted to find out more about her. But I was doing a job. I was filming for this thing called Danger Zone, and we were in Raqqa and Baghouz. So I spent sort of a week and a half with I got some great stories from there, but we'll move on to Shamima. So on a day off, I thought I'd go and see her. So I've made my applications to the Kurdish commander and Roj Camp to see if she'll agree to meet me. Well, she had no choice anyway, because you could put in a room with her and she can say yes or no. She doesn't have to talk to you, but you get that opportunity of saying yes or no. So we'd agreed on this Friday. I'd finished filming. I thought I'd give it a go, but I expected to be told to go away. She'd been telling all the journalists to just clear off. She'd had enough of them. So I met Shamima. I was put in a small room and I felt quite nervous. But she had this kind of celebrity aura about her, made once again by the press. She had her own Wikipedia site. I mean, how can you have as a terrorist as a Wikipedia? Well, she did. And I kind of don't like failing. I don't know about you. Do you like failing, Chris? Because I don't like failure. I really don't. It's not a big part of me. So I was put in a room with her, and the night before I went in there, I was planning, how am I going to get this woman to actually talk to me? So I had this Netflix documentary I did called Dark Tourist. And part of it, I was in an orphanage where all these children were dying of leukemia because of the Russians' testing of nuclear weapons in Kazakhstan. So these birth defects. So I had this area, and do you cry when now you got older? Somehow, since I've got into my 50s, I see an emotional film, and the tears start rolling. That turn up at 50 or 45. You might not be 50 while you look at it. I don't mean that, Chris. But anyway, so I've had this part, and I wanted to show to her that I wasn't like one of these journalists that she might see who'll ask her about heads in bins and shit like that, which is unimportant to me. I wanted to know her, not what she'd seen. So anyway, I had this, and she said no, and I said, I'm not having that, Shamima. You're not saying no. I've come all these miles here, and I've just come from these places. And I showed her this footage of this documentary, and she said, no, it doesn't seem you are. You're a documentary maker. You're not a journalist. I thought, I don't even think I'm a filmmaker. I just fell into it. All right, love, we'll do that. So I went for a walk with her. And talked about shit that I talked to my daughter, because I've got a daughter her age, and we talked about TV, what's your favourite shit and crap, and a load of old rubbish stuff that journalists wouldn't ask. But we made a bond. I didn't know if I wanted to make a bond. And we talked 2 hours of crap, and then you only get 2 hours, and you have to leave the prison. So she walked me back up to the main block, because they all live in tents, and there's a brick building where administration is. And as I went to say goodbye, I said, look, can I shake your hand? And at that point, she said, can I have a cuddle? And firstly, straight away, guilt hit me. I mean, I love my country, and I love everything about it and whatever, and the freedom we have. And I kind of was brought into the bit about what she had done and how she behaved and what she could have done. Bear in mind, I've been to refugee camps and seen people that had been tortured by ISIS. I've seen torture blocks. I documentary shit, some awful stuff. So I hugged her, and I felt guilty from that moment onward. Not guilty enough to put in the papers, but I felt guilty. And I went on GMB, Good Morning Britain, and I spoke about it. And I still had this guilt inside me. So I went home and I thought, well, I'm never going to see her again. Got a few death threats. Que sera, Navida, that was the end of it. I'll carry on my normal life and just carry on with my book. But then Good Morning Britain called me up and said, how do you fancy taking us back to do a live interview? I could do a live interview. And anyway, that went on and become BAFTA nominated. So I'm really conning the whole world. So BAFTA nominate, and I'm a builder from Aldershot. How that happened? I think Sex Pistols.
You're fucking builder from Aldershot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
You've been to Aldershot, haven't you? You were obviously.
I've got to go, I'm afraid.
That's what I wish. Maybe that's what a few people should have said, Chris. I'm born in Aldershot. I'm not there now.
I got to go and like hammer a nail in or something really, really important.
What do the MPs have you down there? Did they?
Can I chip in and just say a couple of things, because I love to touch base when I went. So I visited a prisoner in, I think it was Ecuador.
Yeah. Lots
of youngish female British girls in prison in South America, right? And we know what for, don't we? It's for the old taking the wrong suitcase on the plane.
You met them?
Yeah, well, there's a thing you can do. I think it's actually in like the Lonely Planet guidebook. Is you apply to the consulate or something. They get you a pass. Right. You go to the prison. You pick which prisoner, and it's just to support them. You know, I mean, it's to rock up. We took about 50 toilet rolls, right? Which might sound shit actually not shit after the last couple of years. Actually, the number one gift. But no, they ask you, be practical. What do these people need inside? And of course, things like toilet roll, they can sell. So we rocked up there. She wasn't very well at the time. She had a flu or something, but she come and she was just a bit like, whoa, you come to see me? We're like, yeah. And it was amazing. It was an incredible experience. You know, these girls were running around this prison like it was a youth club. And she was pointing them out. She's saying that one there, she sells the crack. This one, she sells the coke. You know, I don't do that because I don't want to jeopardize my, parole or whatever it's called. But the other thing is, I remember I met some, hosted some Palestinians for a week when I was studying in Norway. This is friends at home. When I went to work in Mozambique, I studied. Yeah. I taught street children in Mozambique, but I studied in Norway to go there. And one thing they did every year is they had a bus load of or a plane load of Palestinians come over for a mutual sort of visit. And we had a great time. We had a great week. They were showing us how to smoke apples and all this because we were on top of this mountain. We didn't have any access to any stuff. Not that we were. It was all against the rules of the school anyway. But anyway. And I just remember on the last day when they left to get, and it was quite sad. You know, you connect with people, don't you? You know, and you have a great time. And I remember I just give the bloke a big hug, and I turned to the girl, and she was very, very pretty, right? Not that that's. I'm just trying to build a picture here for friends, and they weren't wearing any of the like covers or anything. And of course, just me. Because I love everybody. I went to give her a hug and she went, oh, no. And she went like literally like that movement.
She had the reverse of me.
And so for you, and of course, friends, what we're talking here, is Islam, aren't we? You know, is a man shouldn't have a contact with a woman out of respect and et cetera, et cetera. And I can tell you stories from Pakistan, mate, that were just crazy. Anyway, so I felt a bit stupid. So I just, I felt like I was trying to do my best here, and you made me look a bit like I'm like I don't understand. Anyway, so for you to get a hug from Shamima let's look at the positives here. Is the fact that that's love and that's what it's all about.
It was a connection, and I wish it had been the connection that I thought it was. I thought it was the fact is that because at that time she was regretful what she had done. She could have. Well, I think what we have to put into context, and after spending time when I did in Raqqa, I saw some horror stories, and she was, I think, capable of being part of that horror. If you're doing what you're doing where you went, you probably, it's whether she was trafficked. That was always the big question. Was she trafficked and indoctrinated into Wahhabism? I don't know. And at that point, I didn't. So going back doing the GMB interview, I mean, I've gone, yeah, take me back there. Okay. And she'll definitely speak to me. It was a lie. I didn't know she would. I fancied a free trip. They got a lot of money, ITV, haven't they? And they stay in the best hotel in Erbil. And I was going to have a bit of a whaler time. So I kind of went with them, but not knowing where she would speak to me. So that hug, that connection helped me really. So we went through the shit and she met me again and we did the live interview. But during that time there was some key moments that she taught me that there's something more. She's gone from being a apologetic girl to becoming a victim.
The Prime Minister and Home Secretary were briefed by the intelligence services about claims that you were witnessed preparing suicide vests for suicide bombings.
When I first met her, she had like a vest T-shirt on with a hug, and we took photographs, and she was very worried about the photograph having a bra strap. The second time I met her, she had everything out. So there was changes in her. So she was becoming aware the only way she was going to get back was to become a victim. She wasn't a victim. And I can tell you why at the end. And there's more to Shamima by, like we're saying, the only way you're going to really understand somebody is by meeting them and understanding and getting to their psyche. But during that period of time, the interview went away. She had a tantrum mid-interview, cleared off, and I've dragged her back. I thought, well, I've just spent all this time. I'm going to look a mug if you don't come back. So I dragged her back. She did the rest of the interview. But at that time, we reconnected. She was hugging all the time. It was like, wow, we have a connection. So I gave her my phone number because I allowed her a phone call a week. And I thought, I had nothing of it. I'm never coming back again. And I went away. And then the texts started to roll in. Just continuing texts started coming in from her, from a prison camp. And this was like, for me, wow, I really am in this girl's psyche. I want to find out more about her. And when I was in doing the GMB interview and on a break, and when they were clearing their shit away and probably congratulating themselves on what a great job they'd all done, and probably forgot about me, did the job for them. But anyway, so I went off and she showed me, got it out of her purse, and she showed the pictures of these two children. The other one, the third one that died, but there was no pictures. And there's a picture of a kid with chocolate all over its face, playing like a normal kid. And then another kid. They all died of oxygen starvation. You can read into that whatever you want. I never addressed that to her. And once again, like I said, you get in your 50s and your tears start to come. You go, Jesus Christ, don't start crying in front of a so-called terrorist or anything else. Anyway, they did. They came. I was upset. And when one of the texts I gave to her, first text was, hey, Shamima, when I've got back, those pictures really made me upset. And the picture of your two kids have stuck with me. And she said, oh, don't worry about that. I'm over that part of my life now. And I thought, hold on a minute. I've been, like I told you, my brother died. And my sister just recently died. How can you be over the death of two children only a couple of years ago? Is that just your situation? But emotionally, wherever you are, you can't just get over that, can you?
Was there a point where you started to have second thoughts about your life in Islamic State, under Islamic State?
Just only at the end, like after my son died, I realized I had to get out for the sake of my children, for the sake of my daughter and my baby. So, yeah.
It was only at the end. It was only at the end.
Chris, tell me.
Did she actually have? Is it proven that she had these kids, or could this be some propaganda stuff from the ISIS to say, look, she's one of us now?
No,
we mated with her.
No, she definitely. In the third child, I asked the woman, there's a grave around the prison of her third child. They all died of this somehow lack of oxygen. I don't know. And if it was it, then surely she'd have no reason for her to tell a lie. And the pictures were clearly her. She was in them. And then going on, and that kind of changed me. And the texts kept on coming. And then I went back. No, I went to Ukraine during the conflict. So once again, I'm a bit nosy, and war started, and I wanted to kind of, out of empathy, go there. I needed a reason to go there and talk about freaking animals again. I went to rescue a bear, one of these circus bears. But then I said to Shamima, you need to keep yourself in the press. And she said, not now Ukrainian, now you're the Ukraine war, and then no one's going to be interested in us. It was like the war in Ukraine had become an inconvenience. There was no emotion, just an inconvenience. So my opinions of her, she hadn't learned empathy. So reserve-wise, I thought, this isn't a girl that's got any sympathy or sorrow or any remorse of what she's done at all. And what what happened in Raqqa, there's no way that and in Baghuz, she would not have seen, bodies burning in the street. Headings were regular affairs. Homosexuals being thrown off buildings like they were in Mosul. It happened there. But she said, I think I saw her head in a bin. And that's a lie. She'd have seen much more than that. And then I went back with Sky TV. I've become like a lovey now. So Sky contacted me and said, will you go back again? And I thought, Sky's budget, they must have loads. So I went back to the same hotel and I did the same thing. Funny thing is, though, and I will really laugh about this, these so-called Oxbridge journalists, can you get Shamima the interview? Yeah, I'll go with you. And I took you, and I knew I'd get Shamima interview by then. He was texting me and she was saying, I'm really excited about you coming. And this guy, I won't mention his name because it embarrassed him. Shamima's now got the COVID mask on and she's doing the interview with this mask. I thought, this bloke's twat. Why didn't he ask her to take her mask off? And part of the deal was I get a 20-minute interview with her afterwards with their cameraman and I could freelance it. So he's done his interview and he's cleared off. So I said, Shamima, take your mask off so we can do my interview. And I could see this presenter, he's gone, how the fuck's he done that? I've just done a whole interview with a mask on. This amateur guy that's a builder from Aldershot, has now interviewed her with no mask on. But anyway, they should ask, shouldn't they?
The problem is, at the age of being a teenager, you're very arrogant and you don't listen to people. Sometimes you really do have to learn the hard way. Sometimes you have to be shown, like,
not this way though.
So sometimes I could be used as an example, like, you don't want to end up like her. I think that's...
Would that bother you?
No, it wouldn't. Because if it stops children making the same mistake that I made, of course, use me as an example. Tell the kids, don't be like her.
It's like we were expecting to be going through a field of COVID. There was a Mr. COVID that was attacking us. So I just ignored all that shit anyway. It didn't bother me. It didn't stop me travelling. It stopped during, ironically, it stopped during the Ukrainian war as well. There was no COVID during that period of time. It dried up, didn't it? We forgot about it on the news and that. It hasn't come back since then.
I'm waiting for the apologies to come rolling in from all the people that were fucking horrible to me.
Well,
not that I care, because I tune into a higher power than other people's emotions. But it is quite funny that we called this. We said 2 years ago what was happening. We said what the result's going to be. We said people are going to be upset. And now it's all coming out in the wash. I'm wondering if my inbox is going to be full of all these people that turn their back on me.
Listen, it really doesn't matter anyway, does it? Nothing really matters, really. Life's such a short. It's like press and media and what goes in the press. It's forgotten about a week later. COVID will be forgot about, and all that stuff you got about the vaccines will be forgot about. Give it time, year and a half, never happened. Like I said to you, during the Ukrainian war, during COVID times, that happened during, COVID, I don't know, I think third wave of whatever it was. I didn't see any of these waves, but they were there. There was nobody wearing a mask in Ukraine, I can't remember. And I come on, imagine you come on a plane, you put a mask off, you get into the airport lounge, don't need a mask. So COVID only exists on an aeroplane, but not in the departure lounge. I'm a normal bloke. I wasn't a journalist when I went. I've now got my press card. But going into they didn't want to give me a press card neither because I hadn't been to university. So they thought, how can we give this guy? So, but you learn, that's what you learn, you control. There's, the government say, do not travel to this country because you're extreme danger. I mean, Erbil's is probably the safest place. You would go in London and get murdered, but you wouldn't in Erbil. The doors still louder. I was safer there than I was here. So the it's about everything in life. Just don't listen. Make your own mind up.
Mm.
Best thing to do is don't read a paper. I got banned from Syria because of a newspaper. My final trip to the Shamima shit, I wrote a story because Shamima, she's going to go to trial. She's going to go on trial and get 20 years, I reckon. She'll get 20 years in Syria. That's her biggest fear, because once she's been sentenced, it doesn't matter about her getting her citizenship back or not. She's sentenced. That's her prison sentence. That's her fear. And when I come back, I wrote that story about it, about her fear. And they said Shamima fears the death penalty. Well, the SDF, the Syrian Defence Forces, had the ump with me because they don't have the death sentence. They believe it's barbaric. So she would in prison. So I got the SDF contacted me and said, "You're banned." And all because of a newspaper. I got an apology from the newspaper, but it just goes to prove you cannot read. And I asked the journalist, said, "You need to go back into the paper and then take that out," but they won't. It's because it's chip paper the next day. But you can't believe things. Mm-hmm. You know, anything that you open a paper at and go, that's a fact because it's in the newspaper. It's not. It's how it's. I don't know. Have you ever wrote newspaper articles?
I've written a few magazine.
Well, then you know. And if it's been edited, you know it's not what you wrote. They change it to fit, I don't know, maybe their political stance, or they change it because it sounds better. And that article about her being afraid of the death sentence was fantastic for the newspaper because clickbait was all over it. So they didn't care it was a lie. The mate didn't care it was a lie. He didn't give a monkeys because he'd done his job, didn't he? But that happens as your COVID stuff comes in place. You know, you turned on the TV in the morning, all you heard is COVID. So the fact is that people were dying. There was earthquakes. There was explosions during that period of time. It was only when the Ukrainian war started that we stopped talking about it. Well, we went from Brexit, didn't we? We went Brexit, and that's all we ever talked about, Brexit. And then we talked about COVID, and now we've given up on Ukraine, and Ukraine is a more deadlier place. It was at the beginning. We're a strange thing.
Are you going to see Zelensky? Did I hear that?
Yeah. Well, at the moment, because my military contacts and my mates, because like we'd be best mates, me and you go out, we knock about with the same sort of people who don't listen to any shit that goes on. So, and you know, that's kind of like the military. So all of the presenters and TV people, you're there, and my mates there to do a job where I don't. Although I interview and I've become in front of the camera, I gravitate to my normal people. And because of that gravitation, the people, my contacts. So Zelensky's got him from people who are working in Ukraine, ex-military. So yeah, Zelensky's on my books. However, I will reserve the right, and you can have this interview if you want to ask her when I come back. I want to find out the truth of Ukraine. I've read a lot. I'm not going to say any more than that.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Khazarian mafia?
Yeah.
Theory, Sabbaty and Frankist cult, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in a good place then to go and interview.
So my whole questions would be, I mean, we're taking GMB, going out there to interview. So it's just that I want to, like I said yourself, it'll be nice to go to the country and find out for yourself. I don't want to talk about the interview too much beforehand because we're waiting for dates. And once the dates come out, then we can have a little chat about it when I come back.
If he offers you a line, are you going to take it? I would. No, I mean, I didn't say that.
So my life, a bit like yours, I just can't go for the conventional shit that goes on in life.
All the stuff that's been hidden from us through.
Well, we're all searching for something. And what you said is why I've been doing what I've been doing, is because the answer is always why we're here. I think that's what everybody's end day, and everybody has the fear of the end because they don't know what the end is. They don't know. And I think most of us are searching, like you said, you're searching for your answers.
Not anymore.
No, you don't seem to be. I still am.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but no, I found them all. Let's get that clear. There is no end. So once you realize there's no end, then nobody can put you in fear.
No, and I think that's most people in life's fear is of the end, because that's what none of us. Well, you do quite clearly, you do, and I haven't got there, because the fear of the end controls your life and is a restraint upon your life. So I think, because for me, in my mind, I achieve what I do and I do what I do because I want to leave something when I go. I want to have come here and achieved and been able to have done something with my life where 90% of people don't. I am a real free spirit. I don't listen to can't, won't, or don't. I do what I want, and not in an arrogant way. I just do. If I want to see something and do it, I won't read about any. I just go. But yeah, I mean, I'm quite envious of you. I'm quite envious of people that have got faith, because faith would be a marvelous thing to have. Because you're living your life would be easy with a faith, I would imagine.
Like, I don't have faith. Faith is blind. That's like, there's a guy on a cloud and he's got a big beard and he's going to send me. I have knowing. It's something completely different.
I'm saying that yours is different, but people with a faith, whether it be wrong or right, or whether, they're believing they shouldn't, like the man in the cloud, but that faith, if that's what they 100% believe in, is making their life easier.
It depends in what way, and Andrew.
I suppose the fact is the fear of the end is easy.
Yeah, but we could do mate. Let's do another podcast on this subject, because I really want to tell your story. But
yeah,
no, blind belief in stuff is not helpful. It's just not helpful, Well,
that's why I can't get there. That's why.
Yeah, knowing, right, in biblical terms or scriptural terms, is referred to as gnosis. Once you know yourself, then you will know everything else, or you can do it the other way. You can know everything else, and then you will know yourself. This is why the best gospel, I can't even believe I'm using terms like gospel at 53, because if you'd said to me this 10 years ago, I would have laughed at you, right? But the best gospel, Andrew, the gospel according to Thomas, who some people say was Yeshua's brother, it's the actual word of Yeshua, not all this stuff you read in the New Testament. It's the actual word, and it's fascinating. And it's stuff like, he who travels home with a small hole in the shopping bag will get home and realize they've lost it all. And it's allegorical. It's not about someone going home with a shopping bag.
Yeah, it's quite simplistic to understand what it means.
It's about, like, if you don't get this and you haven't got your eye on the ball and it's passing you by, you'll get to your end of life and you will be afraid of death because you don't understand it all. And you'll be thinking in terms of, like heaven and hell, and can we get a priest in to give me or whatever it is and it's incredible. It's called gnosis. It's knowing. It's not about faith. And once you know it, it's so powerful. It's just so powerful, and no one can take it away from you. And once you've reached that gnosis, once you live in the land of milk and honey, the serotonin and the DM, like, you cannot leave. Even if you have a bad day or something horrendous, your default is still up here. Incredible, mate. Incredible.
Well, then that's something we're going to have to talk about another time. I'd love to podcast that on
I'd love to. Andrew, I'm just going to put us on pause 1 second. Yes. Andrew, I just want to say, I don't like to talk a lot on my podcast. However, I do like to interject. Thank you for giving me the platform just to say all the stuff that I've said, because it's really, really important at this time in life. And I'm going to hand over to you. We're just going to talk
I think it's about a good thing. I mean, conversation, the good things about podcasts that I've learned. I mean, I've been interviewed several times by several people, but the good thing about podcasts is the conversations can always lead in different directions. And for me, everything's about learning. It's a learning process, because that's something that my book and my travel and everything I've done has been a great learning process.
Get your book up.
Yeah, my book is, it's out from Candy Jar. Publisher is the publisher. And people are receiving them today, pre-ordered them. And it takes you pretty much on a journey from being a nobody from Aldershot and ended up, I don't think it was a somebody, because that's what a lot of these celebrities say. And I don't think I'm a somebody. I'm a more educated me. It takes you to the Ku Klux Klan, and because people say you can't meet them, and that actually closed the myth about the Klan to such a powerful, supposedly group of people, to a bunch of wimpy, wet, little old men and people that are drunk and stupid people. And ironically, the Ku Klux Klan, people that threatened to kill me with a gun that was the size of, I probably could have thrown a stone for more than his bullet of his gun would have travelled. And I'll let you know something about Ku Klux Klan. They were more interested in Downton Abbey than doing any of the things that they claim they do. Because I met this guy, and after spending 2 days with the Ku Klux Klan, he asked me to as a catch-up for Downton Abbey, and unfortunately I don't watch it. But the book takes you through the Mogadishu, the Black Hawk Down, North Korea, the myths of North Korea, because we all believe that people in North Korea are all living a life of, I was told that you'd see people side the road cutting grass with scissors because none of them are happy. I went to the best barbecue ever in Pyongyang, North Korea. People dancing, enjoying themselves, roasting meat, eating and celebrating. This is not supposed to happen in North Korea, but it does.
Mate, I've been in North Korea.
Well, you might have seen some of that. You've been in Pyongyang then, obviously.
Mate, I've literally stepped across. Is it the 37th parallel?
Yeah.
I literally got the opportunity to step into North Korea. It's all a bit silly. I won't bore you with it now, but I think it's great for our friends at home. You've got two people chatting now that have actually been in a place where there's so much myth about.
Well, there is. I mean, there is a lot of it's true. I mean, you get your mobile phones, or you did then, you got your mobile phones taken away from you, and then they are very, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I showed my guide, and she worked for, obviously, the government, her first time she'd ever seen Beyonce, and that was quite amusing. So teaching, but my wife said, I haven't got Beyonce. Honestly, Chris, I'm not a Beyonce fan. But on my iPad, it was music, but then the whole country, I actually had a good time. They treated me really well. And then I did an interview for American press about a guy called Otto Warmbier. He was a guy that was supposedly beaten by, was taken prisoner for stealing a picture of whoever it was, Kim Il-jung or the other one or whatever. But he was taken, and I actually don't believe that conspiracy, because I stole so much under the eyes of my guides. I don't believe that he was beaten and killed there. No. I stole loads of things. I got loads of things I nicked, and they're happily stolen posters and crap and anti-American pictures, and they were happily giving them to me. I didn't have to steal them, but he got in prison for stealing a poster. Don't ring true, mate. But what did you think of North Korea?
Well, my story is quite simple. I got to Tokyo Airport. Was it Narita? Is it Narita Airport in Tokyo? And stupid me, I arrived a day early, and I was due to fly to somewhere like Singapore. Right. And so rather than lose a day, I went up to the ticket desk and I said, look, well, where? And I looked at Asia. I thought, do you know what? I've not been in Korea. So I said, well, how much is a ticket to Korea? They said 500 quid. So I just got my credit card out, went, let's go. Life's too short. Life's too short not to visit Korea, right? So for that day, and I wangled my ticket a bit. So I actually got 3 days there. And I woke up in the backpacker in the morning, and there was a poster on the wall said a trip to the demilitarized zone.
The DMZ.
The DMZ, yeah. So I thought, yeah, got to have some of that. So I got on there. And when we're on the bus going to the demilitarized zone, the tour guide said, okay, folks, so we're going to the DMZ, blah, 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 spill. Would anyone like to go into North Korea? And I went, yeah. And I looked around, and I was the only person on the bus with my hand up. And what happened is we went into the official meeting room where the South Korea meets with North Korea. And literally along the desk on the 37th parallel is a set of microphones. And that delineates North Korea.
Yeah, I sat in that room where I was from the North Korean side, went to that.
Yeah. And they said, right, who wanted to go to North Korea? And I'm like, okay. And I stepped into North Korea. I had my photo taken with the guard, who was actually South Korean, which is a bit confusing. But it's silly things like this, Andrew, that I love about my life. You know, it's just like the time I dived off the cliff in Acapulco, right? Having seen the Elvis movie when I was a kid, like the time I caught piranhas in the Amazon jungle.
Because you can do these things, can't you, if you want to?
Mm.
Like going into North Korea, like you put your hand up, like people didn't. I mean, I went to Pyongyang and traveling around North Korea, traveling people having a barbecue with North Koreans is supposed to be struggling in the forest in North Korea. Going for an underground station was a punch up. You know, these are places you're not supposed to go, and you're supposed to be treated like shit. I was loved there. It was great.
Cuba, that's another one.
Never been there.
I had to fly to, I think it was Mexico, to get a flight into Cuba because America banned it all, right?
Yeah.
You got to fly to, I don't know, I can't remember where I was in Mexico. So obviously, I was in Acapulco. But next thing, I'm on a flight to Cuba, and just incredible. It was just an incredible experience, but you've got to be willing to want to do these things.
Well, it is. It's the extremity of travel and how hard it is to get somewhere. So any bit worth seeing. We did the Headhunters tribe. Chernobyl was difficult to find. Mogadishu was horrendous. That was the most scariest place I've been to.
You talked about Black Hawk Down. Can you tell us more about that? Because I've read, read the book.
I saw the film Black Hawk Down, and I thought, well, Somalia, Mogadishu. Firstly, this is a bit of a this is going back when they were still fighting. Shabab was still fighting. There's a beach called Lido Beach. There's a front line there, and I wanted to go. I wanted to see this helicopter. I want to see it. I'd seen the film and seen everything about it, and I just thought, life, like you said, life's too short. And that we met the ex-SAS guy that retired. He was controlling the airport out there, territorial SAS, as I was told by a friend of mine. They're not real SAS, but he said he was. And we were in Bukhara Market where it all happened, and it looked just like the film. And we found the helicopter in a hedge, but we were given a 50-50 chance of living. You know, you'd have 50-50 chance of coming back. So that's how dangerous it was because they were fighting in the streets. But I come back from and look back about 50. I had a 50-50% chance of being alive, and I had 150% chance of living after I come back, because being that close opened my eyes to life. It really did, and it told me how lucky I was because you know I went back and filmed part of this danger zone. And this is how life can be so short. And my friend, who was my guard, got killed, I think, 4 days after we left. And, you know, tells you how lucky we are. It really does. And I'm burbling on now, but, you know, yeah. And that's what I'm saying to you. You must, anybody listening to your podcast, and you especially, because I'm going to search up and listen to everything you've done now. So I've so much enjoyed this meeting. I need to know more about you, and hopefully you do about me. Go out and do things. You don't have to go out to war zones. You don't have to do it, but don't do what you're told. Do what you want to do, because that's what you're here for. Surely, I don't know. You know, I know you're enlightenment, but surely you're here to do things, aren't you? You're not supposed to just follow your path of holiday 2 weeks of year, work 50, holiday 4, including bank holidays and crap. Sure, that's not life, is it? Really?
No, mate, not when you retire and then you bloody die.
I don't want to do that. I can retire. What's that all about?
Tell us about Chernobyl. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, Chernobyl. Well, the first part of that trip was down in the Crimea, actually, before the war. And they're all Russian down there. I mean, that's one thing I would say. They're all very Russian down in the Crimea. With Chernobyl, I went there before tourists went there. We were told not to go there. They said that the land would be 100 years before anybody could actually live there. And we did the whole school. We could go into all the buildings, we picked things up, and I'm dead yet. I don't know why or not. And why? Because once again, I didn't listen. So went to schools. You could see they were panicking. There was gas masks everywhere. I think most of the fatality there was the fire brigade and Belarusians went over there to loot the buildings in Pripyat. And one of the most poignant stories I had after that fear in your mind of what you were touching and doing, and it was quite sad because you could see the panic from school. The school was the most thing because it was scattered on the floor in Mars. They've cleaned them all out now, and you can see half-written blackboards where they'd stopped and cleared the class. But after we'd experienced all that, we went to meet this woman who refused to leave. She said, "I'm in my 70s. I'm not going anywhere. I'll die here. I'm going to die anyway. I'll die." But we sat down and we were introduced to her, and I said she wanted to cook us dinner. And at that point, what do? She farmed her own veggies and her own shit, and she's going to put it on the table for us to eat. Would you have eaten it? Would you have eaten that food?
What a great question, mate. I don't understand the whole nuclear thing. I wonder if there's something like if we're not being told. Because
possibly. She was alive.
There were people that never left.
We didn't eat it. And I felt guilty for not eating it because she presented food she was cooking. She knew we were coming. Because you don't, like you said, you don't know enough. But as we left, she said, "Oh, I quite understand, Bardi," but she was quite into it. She gave us a handful of sweets. And because they had wrappers on, right, they were in a house from a hand. I thought they got wrappers on. See, nuclear fallout can't go through wrappers of sweet wrappers, they're paper. I ate them. So, what a donut. But kind of, and I think she must be in her 80s now. She's still alive. And now that area, until obviously recently, a Chernobyl forest, trees started to grow. They said nothing would grow there for 500 years and new trees are growing. I don't think anybody knows the truth anyway.
No.
I really and truthfully don't. And the nuclear testing in Kazakhstan for this Kazakhstan thing I did for Netflix, we were there. We were involved in seeing what was happening to people. So we might have said it was an atrocity the Russians were committing. They were, but we still wanted to know the evidence because we went out to go and clear it out, supposedly. So yeah, I've got to wrap up soon, Chris. And I don't even think we're halfway there, mate.
Well, mate, let's go again. We can always do a live. We can do a live show maybe on a Friday night, and
I'd love that.
Yeah,
love it, mate. And
take questions from our wonderful friends out there.
Let's do that, mate.
Yeah.
And I mean, I bonded with you. I mean, when I come back from Zelensky, perhaps then me and you jump on, because I'm sure your listeners will want to hear my thoughts of the Ukraine.
Yeah, we can do a live while you're over there. As long as you got a Wi-Fi signal or a mobile signal, we can do.
I'll give you a call because once I'm in there, I'll be on. I mean, hopefully, Good Morning Britain will be in the Hyatt because that's a nice hotel, and obviously they got loads of money. I'll be staying in the backpacker, and they're staying in the Hyatt. But no, I'll be up there with them. So maybe we could. Why not?
Definitely.
What place to do it from?
What do you expect to get from your visit there?
Well, more than last time, a pissy bear. We rescued the bear and shared 3 days in a transit van and with him in a cage and thinking of bear piss and having an emotional feeling of letting this bear go into a sanctuary. And I thought I was like something special. And the fucking bear died 3 months later. I hopefully get. I don't know. I hope to get to find out a little bit more about the political side of it, and have an open mind, and have my own thoughts. rather than thoughts maybe that will be generated by the people I'm going with.
Definitely.
So no, I'll come back and say, but we haven't finished, Chris. Out of all the podcasts I've done, and I don't want to offend anybody else I've had podcasts with and maybe have in the future, I've really enjoyed this. I think we're a kindred spirit.
It's an honor, mate. You know, to be honest, I'm going to blow our podcast. I'm going to blow our podcast. That sounds a bit rude. No, I'm going to blow our trumpet here because most of our guests say the same thing. I think a lot of people, because we're all indoctrinated through the mainstream media and BBC, I think a lot of people think a podcast is an interview. Yeah, but it's not. It's a chat, and I'm, you know, I care about my guests. I want to listen to their stories. I don't want some mainstream blurb. And we get an awful lot of people. I chatted to the wonderful David Icke this week. Was it this week, or it might be the end of last week? And he just looked at me at the end and went, Chris, in all my years of interviews, no one's ever asked me what you did. I'm like, yeah, it's, you know, we got a good thing going here. We got a good thing, you know.
I hope a lot of people listen to you, and I hope you get, or something comes good of anything. I mean, but I think we can't end it here. I think there has to be a part 2. I feel that we only touched bits. We end up rambling on like 2 old men. So
yes. No, let's go again soon, mate. Good luck. Good luck with your book, Trip Hazard. Folks, we'll put a link below so you can grab yourselves a copy. And keep your head down, mate, when you're over there. You know, that's you got to be careful traveling.
Brilliant, mate. And I look forward to catching up really soon, Chris. And thanks for your time, and thanks for the invite. Yes. I was honoured to receive it. Yes, no worries. Just stay on the line so I can thank you properly. But to our friends at home, thank you so much for watching another episode of Bought the T-Shirt podcast. You really are legendary, and I know we cover an awful lot of stuff that probably, like, maybe you haven't had to think about before, or maybe you've thought about it way more than I have, in which case I congratulate you. But, you know, we've got to build a better future for the children, because this constant state of warfare is just silly. Being afraid to do your shopping in Tesco's without putting your pants on your face is silly. And you're all being lied to. But we won't lie to you. Much love. If you can like and subscribe, we'll see you soon. Thank you.